World War II, Korea babies. Baby boomers from 1946 to 1964. They're currently making up about 39% of the workforce. Cultural change, Vietnam, growth of federal government, drugs, sex, rock and roll. That's the baby boomer era. Gen X, 1965 to 1977. 32% of the workforce. Economic disruption, women enter the workforce in huge numbers. Latchkey kids. Gen Y, as we hear them called, 1978 through 1994. They're currently at about 25% of the workforce. Economic boom, unrivaled education, women outnumber men in college. The millennials are the 1995s to current 2012, just now entering the workforce at the age of 17. Economic disruption, war, next generation technology, government dysfunction. The traditionalist generation, first job involved physical labor, hard labor. Their competitors was literally everyone else was looking for those jobs. The baby boomers' first job involved physical labor, not quite as hard due to the technology development. Labor competitors was another boomer, but there were lots of jobs, okay? And then the Generation X first job happened later, was likely in a mixed service, light physical labor. Labor competitor was late birth boomer, whose numbers dwarfed the Gen X. And the Gen Y, they were more in the retail or service. Physical labor jobs have mostly disappeared or held by adult immigrants. Labor competitors were another Gen Yer. The millennials' first job in the service role. Retail is disappearing. Labor competitors were an older boomer, and there are fewer opportunities. Now we're going to compare the work ethics from traditionalists to the new generation. The work comes first for the traditionalist, the distinction between work and personal time. They follow the rules. Seniority equals promotion. 9 to 5 plus overtime. This is the traditionalist. Their type of communication was more face-to-face. They will change their needs to meet the needs of work, is the traditionalist. Now for the new work ethics, the life comes first. Work-life integration with very little distinction. Rules are okay if they work. Talent or education equals promotion. And who really cares about the clock? Work now, work later, work late, come in early. The new generation has more to do with the digital contacts instead of the face-to-face. The organization should change to meet their personal needs. So what do we do to find a common ground between the traditionalists to the new? We need to create a path, create a learning relationship, create a focus on common vision, mission alignment, accountability for results, create a common strategy to reach objectives, to define acceptable risk. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jimmy Dean Coffey. I'm from Bloomington, Indiana, and there are a lot of cultural differences in the workplace that we need to be aware of, and I'm glad to be here in Spokane, Washington.
Questions for Jimmy Dean? Thank you very much, Jimmy Dean Coffey. Next up, gentlemen, give her a big hand, Miss Debbie Roth.
My name is Debbie Roth, and I work for Greater Giving as the Relationship Marketing Manager, and I work with auctioneers all over the United States that work with fundraising nonprofits. Today I'm going to talk to you about living your dream, and to do that I'm going to tell you a story. And as you know, all good stories start with, once upon a time. There was a 16-year-old girl who liked an 18-year-old boy. They went to church together, their families hung out together, and they had a great time. But when she left for college, she forgot about that boy. She had big dreams. And then life happened. She got married, and after 11 years, it ended in divorce. Dreams of ministry and dreams of children had died. Many years later, she remarries. Her husband survives a bout with cancer. And she has a baby that she had given up hope on ever having. And then a sudden death and legal battles and struggles to survive. Her dreams are dead. Life is about raising that child with no thought to meaning in her work. It was only about the small life given to her care. This thing called Facebook comes on the scene, and she's reconnecting from people from her past, and this man reaches out to reconnect with her. Emails were exchanged, lots of laughter was shared as the woman was reminded of a simpler, more innocent time. Her heart begins to thaw. More news goes back and forth, but there's no plans to meet, no talk of what if, and no phone calls. Her busy season hits. It's auction season, just like yours. She's behind on everything, including emails, and feeling guilty that she hasn't dropped a line. Oh, what's this? You've got mail? Something to the effect, I'm busy with school, I'm putting a concert together, you should pack up and move to Colorado, and we'll spend summer sailing on the lake. The woman thought that was funny and laughs and says, Oregon has lots of lakes and water. Besides, it's too much trouble to move all my junk. The man writes, you missed my thinly veiled proposal of marriage. I should have thrown in a handmade pizza. That would have made the difference, I'm sure. The woman chuckles and says, yes, pizza is good, but it takes Swiss chocolate and red wine to move me. The man then offers his Australian didgeridoo, which the woman thought was hilarious and said, oh, that's done it. I'm packing a U-Haul, and I'll see you on Saturday. The man says, well, I was planning on sleeping in, but I guess I could get married. I'll call you tonight. What have I done? 4 hours later on the phone, and the man says, what do you think? The woman says, I can't. I can't leave my mother. I can't uproot my son. I cannot start a new job. And I'm upside down in my house. The man was silent for a moment and then said gently, together we could overcome all of these things. The answer was still no. The woman hangs up and she cries for loss. She cries for feeling trapped. She cries for being scared. But then she started to consider the possibilities. She tells her mother. Her mother says, when are you leaving? She calls her brother. He says, why aren't you on your way? She talks to her sister who says, have you done a background check? She talks to her son and says, son, I've been praying for you to grow to be a good man and that I would be enough to help you get there without a father. I prayed that if I ever did remarry, that the man would love you as his son. There's a man who wants to marry me. The son says, Mom, I've prayed for a dad, but I don't want to move. She answers, when your dad died, you asked me to buy you a new daddy. I answered that daddies aren't sold on a shelf in a store, and that we would have to ask heaven for one to be made especially for us. And sometimes when prayer is answered, it's in unexpected ways, and your life will change. Now, in case you haven't guessed, I am that woman, and I accepted a proposal of marriage from a man I hadn't seen in 34 years. But how does a love story pertain to dreams coming true in your life? Well, here's what I've learned. When I got divorced, after the 11 years, I decided I wasn't good enough to stay in ministry anymore, and I shut that door. I took a bad job and I stayed there 11 years because I felt I did not deserve anything better. And then when my husband died, in all the horror and grief and legal battles, survival became my only mode, and I gave up on my dreams. My first priority was my son. And over the years, I turned down several positions because I felt I couldn't leave my family support, or there was too much travel, or whatever it wasn't based on what I wanted, but what I thought was not possible. Unfortunately, you teach your children what you model, and I taught him not to try. After the death of my husband, I decided I wanted a job that had some meaning, that I could feel good about, and not just have something that paid the bills. Eventually, that search led me to greater giving, and that one change started all the others in my life. In working with nonprofits over the last 4 years, there's been stirrings for the next step. In working with nonprofits, it's very inspirational. In working with nonprofit auctioneers, I just can't tell you what it means to see people who are passionate about their cause. So now I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming of returning to school. Sorry, I got behind here. It's not advancing automatically. Of returning to school. Anyway, as I said in my story, when I was proposed to, I had a list of why things wouldn't work. And when I realized I wanted it to work, I started looking for ways to make it work. And as those dreams have awakened, I'm now dreaming of going back to school, maybe working for a nonprofit, or maybe becoming a benefit auctioneer, who knows. What have you done to limit yourself? What have you made decisions and let dreams die? What have you decided is impossible, or what are you afraid of? There's power in dreams. I encourage you to dream big and go for it. When you commit to that dream, you may find an even better dream along the way. Dream big.
Questions for Debbie? That was very moving. Thank you, Debbie. Debbie Roth, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our Ignite session. Tomorrow at the same time, at 8:30, we will be reigniting. So for those people that you know are at IAC right now, they wanted to be here, encourage them to come back, and you'll see all 12 presentations just like you did today. And we will reignite Spokane. Thank you very much for coming, ladies.